Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update from Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Sierra Madre is traded on the TSXV under the ticker SM, and then the OTCQX under the ticker SMDRF. I'm joined today with the president and CEO of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, Alex Langer. And Alex, it's a great day to be catching up with you here. We were noting off mic that silver futures just went up and got just a hair shy of $50 right before we are recording this interview. So interesting movements in the silver space. But you've got a lot of news since we talked last month coming out from the La Guitarra mine complex in Mexico, as well as the announcement that in addition to Coloso being mine number two, now Nazareno is permitted and starting to have material brought over from mine number three. So a lot to dive into here. But I really want to peel back the layers on the news you put out to the marketplace on September the 8th. So this is your La Guitarra expansion plans. There's a lot of pieces to this we can dive into, but the first one is just walk us through how the tons per day are planned to increase from the 500 tons per day they're at now to eventually all the way up to 1,500 tons per day, and maybe the different steps along the way there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Chad. And thank you again so much for having me join. Yeah, it's exciting times, especially on the silver side. Touching close to 50 and gold's well over 4,000. So I think our timing is quite good. So early September, we did announce our plans to increase production at the La Guitarra Silver and Gold Mine Complex. First step is going to be to go from 500 tons per day to 750 to 800 by quarter two in 2026, so not too long away. And then from there, we want to go all the way up to 12 to 1500 tons per day, almost tripling capacity by quarter three of 2027. So a short 24 months away. So a few steps in between there that we'll have to achieve, but I think if all goes well, those are realistic goals.
Well, let's dive into some of the interim steps because it involves some equipment that you need. Now, we have talked in the past about the need for more ball mills, more crushers between jaw crushers and cone crushers, but walk us through how you will incrementally step up the throughput and then what equipment you need to buy to make that happen.
For sure. So it's a pretty straightforward purchases and what we need to do in terms of the build. The recent financing, the $19.5 million we raised, should allow us to completely do both expansions with the capital on hand as also the cash flows we're generating. So step one, to go from 500 to 750, 800 by quarter two of next year is kind of three-pronged. One is a new cone crusher, relatively inexpensive. I think we're signing the PO sometime today, so we're getting already started on that. A duplicate cone crusher with electronics and, all the conveyor system. It's less than 200,000 US dollars, so not a huge amount. The other thing we do need to add is a fourth ball mill. So we're out, sourcing that as we speak. It'll be used equipment. So again, not a huge amount of capital, maybe a million and a half US installed. And then the other thing we do need to build is a concentrator. So right now, our tailing space, we have about 24 months. That's in our wet facility. That's being operational. That's where we're depositing our tailings now. But as we do increase production, you never want to fall behind on your tailing space. So last year we permitted a paste backfill facility. So we're going to optimize that and use that. So we're going to be building the concentrator as well as a paste backfill. That's happening actually as we speak. And once that's complete, we'll be able to deposit anywhere from 3 to 500 tons per day in the underground. There's over 40 kilometers underground, lots of former stopes, which is a good thing. Also, increases ground stability, which is always helpful as well. And then we don't overwhelm the tailings facility, which is key. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach. All those things are happening in conjunction, which is great. And that'll let us get up to step one. So again, 700 to 750 by quarter two of next year.
Well, and let's dive into the tailings just a little bit more, just for people not familiar, that when you're talking about that paste backfill, you're basically taking a lot of the waste rock and turning it into a cement or a slurry and then filling in the old stopes, as you mentioned, which, yeah, plugs some of those old holes, but also gives you a little more breathing room on the wet tailings. But then you've got this permit for the dry stack tailings, and that's going to be transformative. So maybe walk us through how that comes in later in the cycle.
Exactly. So that's it again. So, lets us put a lot of material underground, lets our wet facility continue, which is important, and then lets us build our, phase four, we call it, dry stack tailings facility, which is 5.8 million tons. It's fully permitted and very large in capacity. So that one's the largest capex actually for going from 750 to 1,500 tons per day. It's about 2.9 million in phase one US. And again, gives us a lot of capacity. 1,500 tons per day, a 5.8 million tons facility. It's a lot of space. So many years, which is great. So we'll start that actually kind of this time next year. Once the rainy season ends, we'll start to put down some of the liners and things like that. And that's actually the highest cost of these tailings facilities is a big plastic PVC that you need to put down to put your tailings in. So that'll start, and that's really again the biggest bottleneck. We have enough material going to be able to come from Coloso, Guitarra, and Nazareno now that will be able to feed the mill. Just want to make sure, again, you're not falling behind on the tailings facility. So to build that tailings, the new one will take about 6-7 months again. And once it's operational, we'll have excess capacity in the paste backfill underground and also excess capacity in the current tailings facility. So if, one or any of those tailings, there's issues or the pump's not working, we can always divert that. And it always gives excess, which is always important when you're dealing with mining.
Yeah, nice to have a little bit of wiggle room in there and contingency plan, but it's exciting to see all of the steps coming into place to increase production. We've talked about this being a growth-oriented gold and silver producer, and this is part of the growth plan that you're laying out for us. So let's talk about how all three mines can pull in and feed the beast here. Obviously, you're humming right along at La Guitarra, but Coloso is still newer for some people as far as getting their head around that. And then Nazareno, I believe, is connected to Coloso. So walk us through what you anticipate pulling from each mine to make this master plan come together.
Yeah, no, to go from 5 to 750, it's not going to be very difficult. We were doing 500 tons per day just from La Guitarra alone. So the fact that we have Colosso coming online and should be contributing about a third of all production here by the end of the year. What's great about Colosso is it is higher grade. It's about 1.7 times higher on the silver side than La Guitarra, and also higher grade on the gold side, about 1.2 times. Coming into now Nazareno, which as you mentioned is attached to Colosso, is also going to be a big part of the expansion plan. Nazareno is actually higher grade on the silver than Guitarra, a little bit less on the gold side. But when you add it all together, it's a little bit higher grade than Guitarra. So Nazareno was fully built out. It's a new facility that First Majestic had put into production as well and connected to Colosso. So majority of the material will be coming from Guitarra once we get to 12 to 1500. From there, Nazareno, which is, a nice complex. What's great about Nazareno is it has larger widths. So it's about 7 to 8 meters on average, which means your lower cost of mining. Once you blast, you have more material that you can process, and then mixing that in with the high grade Colosso. So yeah, the underground, it's going to allow us to feed this mill quite easily, and it's all kind of coming together as planned. So it's really important to stay ahead of your development. That's one thing. We're still not caught up completely. That's where our costs are a little bit higher, right around 30 all in sustaining costs for the time being. But as we catch up on development, as Nazareno comes online, as Colosso fully comes online, our all in sustaining costs will drop. And a lot of that is tied into development work that we're doing for the long term.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you about the cost profile, how it changes, but I guess we can ask an adaptation, and that is that if you mentioned that Colosso is higher grade than La Guitarra, and really Nazareno is as well, it's not fair to just say, hey, you could just triple, if you're looking at the full 1,500 tons per day plant, you can't just triple what you're seeing now because there's going to be higher grade in the mix than there is in the first 500 tons per day. So maybe walk us through that nuance.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct there. So it's finding that happy medium. You want to have consistency. I think that's really key, and that's what we've worked through within the mine plan is making sure that those grades are, relatively consistent on an ongoing basis. As I mentioned, once we're at 12 to 1,500 tons per day, a third of that material will still come from Colosso. So it is going to be higher grade than we're processing right now. It's almost double, to be honest, once all three of these mines are up and running and where we want to get to, and that should be by the end of the year. So we're expecting grades to really increase. We're still processing a bunch of the former waste rock material because honestly, it's in the way at some points to get into the fresh ore. So we process that material. It's very low cost, but it is lower grade where the fresh ore, the fresh material we'd be mining is almost double that grade. So it's all kind of coming together, and, best way to, lower your costs is just increase your grade. Process and sell more gold and silver with the same mining costs. It's definitely a benefit to everybody. So we're getting there, and it's quite exciting.
Okay, so not just growth through throughput, but grade-driven growth as well, and that should all play towards lowering the all-in sustaining cost over time as you go through Q4 into Q1 into Q2 of next year. you'll see that ramp up effect in production and then that ramp down effect in cost. So we'll be watching for all that growth, Alex. But let's also pull on another lever of growth the company has, and that is all the exploration upside you still have to get to now that you're ramping all these mines up. So talk to us about the blue sky side of the business, the exploration.
Absolutely. So again, this is why we purchased La Guitarra we truly feel it's one of the largest undeveloped silver districts in Mexico. Just as a reminder, it was one of the top five producing silver and gold districts in all of Mexico, literally through colonial times. At some points and over many decades, it was the largest producer of gold and silver. We control the whole district. We're currently mining on the west side, and we will, start exploring on the east side here very, very, very quickly. So with that last raise we raised 19.5 million, about 5.5, 6 million of that is earmarked for exploration drilling, which should commence in Q2 of 2026. To get there, we still need to build up the exact drill targets we want to do. With that, we've hired two new exploration geologists. One of them calls himself the Indiana Jones of Mexico exploration, which is great because there's a bunch of former mines on the East District, some with extraordinarily high grades, including El Rincon, which was about 6.5 grams gold, 860 silver, so really high grade. So we're actually just getting to the underground right now. We're going to start sampling. We're going to start building those drill targets in combination of a 10-hole program in Q2 of 2026. From there, once the results come in, we'll move to a 20-hole program right after. As a reminder, we do have our own assay lab at site, so we get turnaround on our drill results really, real fast. And then from there, another 40-hole. And then I expect once we've done those 70 holes, we would be in a position to hopefully come out with a resource report, shortly thereafter.
Okay, you're reading my mind there. I was going to ask about the resources, but you're working towards that. So you've got three mines going here at the same time, and two of them still in ramp up. You've got all this equipment that you're going to be building out the plant and expanding it at La Guitarra to accept more ore and again the higher grade ore. You've got all this exploration on tap to keep looking for other prizes on your district scale land package. Anything else you want to leave us with, Alex, as far as the outlook as we're heading into what looks to be a very profitable Q4 for the company, but also a big 2026 in front of you?
Yeah, no, that's you've hit every single point there, Shad, and I'd reiterate all of that. We've also been purchasing quite a bit of equipment, which is good. We had a fairly large rental fleet, which added to our all-in sustaining costs. So we've actually added two new scoop trams, two new haulage trucks. We're looking for a few more, so that's going to bring down our numbers on our cost side as well. But we'll have a lot of news. I think we'll have news on exploration. We'll have news as equipment starts to arrive at site and gets installed. So we want to keep everyone abreast of that, and it's exciting times. Again, the silver and gold price, we didn't forecast it this high for sure, but I think we're in a good position right now to take full advantage of that.
All right. Well, we'll keep watching those gold and silver prices move higher. We'll keep watching all the news from Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, and we will also keep following along with it here at the KE Report by having you back on for updates regularly. For those of you listening in, if you want to follow along with all the news, definitely click on the link below in the show notes. It takes you right over to the Sierra Madre Gold and Silver website, straight to their news section, where you can sign up for updates and then have those hit your email inbox or just follow along with all the news as it drops and hits the wires. Alex, keep us posted. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Shad.